Yeah, I apologize about that, y'all. It cut off. But like I was saying, I can have all my stuff lined up and on point. But at the end of the day, it's not really enough people. So that's why it says that, collectively, because a lot of this should be done collectively. The states recognize and respect the multicultural and multilingual character of the indigenous peoples who are an integral part of their societies. So that's another thing, like, being indigenous people, you don't have to give up your culture or even give up your language. You see what I'm saying? You're not supposed to really be doing that as indigenous people. So now you understand why in the movie Roots, why it was very, very important for them to have that whole Toby scene and the whole scene about them beating his original name out of him and putting the new demonic Christian name into him and getting him to accept that. Now you all understand why they had that scene in the movie. That scene was very, very important because that shows you the denationalization of the Aboriginal American. Okay? Because those people in Roots were not from so-called Africa. They was from so-called America. But that's why they have that scene in a lot of these so-called slave movies, showing you being beaten out of your original Aboriginal name, your spiritual name, and then you being now a prisoner of the demonic possession of your slave name. Okay? Which is them calling you what they want to call you. Negro, black, colored, African American, Indian, etc. All right? Indigenous people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. So that's another thing. It's like we're supposed to be self-sustaining. We're supposed to be self-determined. Leading our own economic, charges, our own cultural development, and our own social charges. So that means that we should literally have our own political party. Why are we still voting Democrat and Republican when we have no real influence in those parties? You know what I'm saying? We are not lobbying anybody in neither one of those parties. Neither one of those parties are really representing us. So why are you all voting for those people? But it makes sense because most of you all think you still are United States citizens, aka Negro, blacks, and coloreds. And United States citizens actually do belong to the Democratic and Republican corporate parties. So by voting for those parties, what you really are saying is that I'm part of you all's corporate society. Those are just the facts, Those are just the facts. Let's see what else I want to read. Human rights and collective rights. Full, effective, and observance of human rights. Indigenous peoples and persons have the right to the full enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms as recognized in the Charter of the United Nations, the Charter of the Organization of American States, and international human rights laws. Well, first of all, that just shows you all how bad we've been violated. All you so-called black people listening to this, do you feel like you've had human rights your entire time on this planet? I'm not even that long, and I've never felt like I've had human rights. I've always felt like I had to fight for some type of shit. As so-called black people, have you all had the full enjoyment of fundamental freedoms? Have you been feeling like that your whole life? More than likely not. Okay. Let's keep going. Collective rights. Indigenous peoples have collective rights that are indispensable for their existence, well-being, and integral developments as people. In this regard, the states recognize and respect the right of the indigenous people to their collective action, to their jurisdictional, social, political, and economic systems or institutions, to their own cultures, to profess and practice their spiritual beliefs, to use their own tongues and languages, and to their lands, territories, and resources. States shall promote with the full and effective participation of the indigenous peoples the harmonious coexistence of rights and systems of the different population groups and cultures. Once again, we haven't been getting any of this. We haven't been getting absolutely any of this. Okay, you've been totally robbed of all of this, and part of the reason why is because we have been identifying with a name that has nothing to do with us. A lot of the reasons why we haven't been getting these human rights is because you keep calling yourself a Negro, black, African American, or colored. And we've been doing it our whole lives to where it's like, it's just so second nature to where we ain't really thinking that shit really means nothing. All right. Gender equality. Now I'm going to wrap it up with this because this is all for you so-called black women. And I want you all to see the importance of having a nationality. Because when you don't have a nationality, guess what you're the victim of? You're the victim of having the highest sexual abuse statistic. You are the victim of being, the highest at single mother households. And you are the victim of a lot of the other things that so-called black females deal with. And the reason why is because you are denationalized and you are not tied to a nation. You are a stateless or a nationless woman if you calling yourself a so-called black woman. So they can treat you however they want. And then I'll even tell you this. I heard a white man say this one time. Heard a white man say one time that it's not a rape if she's black. So that's another thing, that a lot of these Caucasian males have the type of mentality that raping a so-called black female is not actually illegal. And if you look at a lot of court cases, it will kind of prove to you that it's true. Look at a lot of those court cases of these so-called black females saying that they was either raped or harassed or something by those Caucasian men in like the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and 60s. And look at how many of them cases just got thrown right away and stuff like that. Why? Because black females actually are stateless. And the Caucasian man knows this. That's why he can do anything to you and there's no real crime or no real punishment for it. But anyway, these are the rights that Aboriginal women have. Not black women, but Aboriginal women. Indigenous women have the right to the recognition, protection, and enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms provided for in international law, freedom of all forms of discrimination. Free of all forms of discrimination. So let me ask you so-called black women this. Do you feel like you have the right to recognition? Do you feel like you have been protected? Do you feel like you have been enjoying human rights? And more importantly, do you feel like you have been free from all forms of discrimination? I think the answer to that is no. Any of you sisters ever had a job interview or something like that and you felt like you had to change your hair, or somebody was always threatening you about your hair or something like that? I got a chick that I talk to sometimes, a very, very voluptuous woman. A lot of you sisters on the job that are real, real voluptuous. Don't y'all get tired of them always looking at y'all funny and saying that, oh, your outfit this and your outfit that and all this different stuff? So no, you have not been enjoying free of all forms of discrimination. They've been discriminating against you real hard because you ain't got no nation. The states recognize the violence against indigenous peoples and persons, particularly women, hinders and nullifies the enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. So do you black women feel like the state of Georgia and all these other states have actually been acknowledging and recognize that violence against you is not right? I don't think so. And last but not least, states shall adopt the necessary measures in conjunction with indigenous people to prevent and eradicate all forms of violence and discrimination, particularly against indigenous women and children. I know for a fact that's not true. Like I just said to you, I heard a white man say one time, and it wasn't in person, so I don't want y'all to think some motherfucker saying this shit in my face. It was online, but I heard a white man quote one time that raping a black woman is not considered illegal. Now, you need to really understand what I mean by that. I'm not saying that to be ugly or mean or nothing. I'm telling you what they think. This is why these white males will harass y'all like that and they don't think nothing gonna come behind that shit. Because they know you all are stateless because you call yourself black, Negro, and colored. Especially like these Freemasonic white men. Yep. That's facts. All helped by your boy Andrew J. So all you all out there slaving for these $20 bills, now you'll think a little bit different about it every time you pull it out your pocket and you see this bastard's face on it, won't you? Don't mean you ain't gonna use it. Because you better believe I'm gonna use this one I got right here. But nevertheless, every time I see that shit, I know who this bastard is. And I cuss his ass out every time I see it. But I just want to drop that, man. Indigenous people have rights. But until we collectively come together like we really need to, we're not going to see none of these rights. And to keep it all the way 100 with you, we really don't need to. Until we get our shit together, we don't need to see them right as a collective. You're going to just have individual people getting their shit together. But as far as all of us, nah, we need to get our shit together, man. And that's facts. But it's the boy Blackbeard, man. I just want to drop this on y'all real quick. Y'all stay tuned for the next one. I'm out.